John 12:32, Jesus speaks and says, "And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me." Some versions say people. That's a huge scripture, and in the Bible references to John 3:14 and 8:28, which talks about him being lifted up and how this is going to cause all men to be drawn unto him. And I was thinking about that in the context of a loving God who draws all men to him. They still must believe, but he's drawing all men. He said he would pour of his spirit over all flesh. That's what Joel said, and Peter quoted it on the day of Pentecost when he poured out his spirit over all flesh. And we can see by the way human beings behave that this has happened because we respond to it in different ways. Obviously, the preferred ways that we respond in belief. It's just that on our way to belief, we go through all kinds of other things, and I don't think everyone's going to eventually believe. But if you do believe that, I don't think that makes you a universalist. Maybe it makes you more hopeful than me, that eventually all people will believe. It just seems clear that so many people express their reaction to being drawn by God by resisting him so much. It's just that when you look at Paul and his resistance, he was obviously being drawn by God, and he resisted and he resisted and he resisted, and he finally gave in. And when you combine that with the fact that God is no respecter of persons, he loves us all the same, then you can be sure that that just and loving God is drawing everyone the same way he would draw Paul. Paul responded. Some people believe God knew he would respond, so that's why he did that. But I believe we still have free will, and God doesn't know the decision we will make until we make it. So who knows if he didn't try it on someone else and they resisted, and then he tried Paul. So then you have scriptures like, well, if I should command these to be quiet, the very stones would cry out. So God is always there's always going to be someone that's going to respond to God. You're going to be sure of that. It's a small percentage, but people will. And as I was saying earlier, the indication that he's drawing them would seem to be in all the craziness that people do. The things in the world that are so hideous to us that believe and trust and love God, or at least are trying to. And we look at just the exact opposite is going on so much in the world. Not just in the obvious ways, but those are disturbing enough, the drugs, the sexual perversions, but just the fact that people don't even seem to want to live for him, even in the so-called church, the so-called body. It would amaze me when I was in church systems that I would hear things like, well, you got to go easy on people, you don't want to burn them out, just have a couple days a week. Don't have every day a week something about God. Let them know that they need to have their special time and put God first and all that. But when you see, well, the implications of that is when you put God first or you have special times for him, you see that not only implies, but it results in other times that have nothing to do with God. Because if this is my special time with God, then hey, I did it, right? I put him first. Now comes the rest of my day, or a portion of it that I can now dedicate to other things that have nothing to do with him, as opposed to the real struggle that goes on within, is God my life or is he not? And that's a big statement. Is he my life? If he's my life, then he is in every single portion of my life. And I surrender him, I give in to him. And the result is this struggle. So some people are trying to learn how to surrender, to give in, to let him be their life. And others, in response, end up doing all these other crazy things. The point is, I'm trying to make in this little message, is that he is drawing all men. And just because many humans do things that just seem the opposite of anything that would happen if God was drawing them, I believe, in fact, it's a sign of the truth that he is drawing them, and that's their response. Their response is rebellion, just like man's response has always been. Even the one that responds to him has some rebellion mixed in there. But the point is, they've made a decision in their heart that they will come to God, that they will believe in God. recognizing that they are rebellious, recognizing that there is no good thing in them. They surrender to God and they make the choice and say, God, I want you. And that's where the true meaning of when you search for me with all your heart and not all your goodness or your religion, your obedience or your tithes or any of those things. When you search for me with all your heart, then you will find me in your miserable state, in your brokenness, in your lostness, in your selfishness, in your independent little rebelliousness. You submit and surrender to me, knowing that you are still all those things, and I'm the one that's going to change you, as opposed to getting your flesh under control and thinking that's your heart. That's not your heart. That's your will. That's your will, doing something to get something. Whereas with all your heart is acknowledging and recognizing, I don't deserve anything, but I want you. And you're all that there is. Even though I have these petty desires and quibbles and problems and struggles within me, I know you are all that there is. And so that's the response to the call that has gone out to everyone. Otherwise the Bible is a lie, but the Bible is not a lie. He was lifted up and he has called all men to him.